Good morning, y'all.
You know, Dr. Doom, Dr. Redlener, who joins us in just a bit, is a famous pediatrician, but he's written a great piece about, the generational damage this is going to do, which you can speak to as well, of having kids out of school this long. And don't you feel like an acid flashback? You're like, no, don't open bars and restaurants before you vaccinate teachers and get kids back in schools, right?
And it makes absolutely zero sense. I mean, these are the same people, by the way, that have been clamoring to have our schools back open 5 days a week, like everything's normal from the very beginning.
Right.
So they just don't want to do anything to help their fellow man. If we want our schools back open, every single person has to continue to do all of the mitigation strategies we've been talking about from the very beginning, even after they're vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, I'm trying not to be conspiratorial, but it's just, you're like, are you looking at Biden's, approval ratings? How about this one? A new poll from Morning Consult shows 77% of Americans support the American Rescue Plan. I mean, are they just going, oh my God, and now he did this great COVID deal with Merck and Johnson & Johnson and, the Defense Production Act, and he's going to get everybody vaccinated by the end of May, and we got to do something. I mean, it's just, it makes no sense, does it? It's hurting their own constituents, trying to not pass COVID relief or slow it down or whatever. It makes no political sense, does it? I frequently ask you to put your political strategist hat on. Take your school hat off.
It's the same strategy they used with Obama. Remember before Obama had even taken office, John Boehner and Mitch McConnell had met to say that they would not cooperate with him at all on anything ever. Yeah. And that's the same strategy we're seeing here. And we're not just seeing it in Washington. Republicans at the state level have gotten the message too. And so that's why you see states like Texas lifting all of their mitigation strategy requirements. And it's just stupid. It puts their own people in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything to weaken this administration. One of the things I think that's driving Biden's popularity is that he's keeping his head down, doing the hard work and leading.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, exactly. And you can tell from, Fox News and company that it's almost like they're afraid to talk about COVID relief and Biden's actual policies, which they know are wildly popular. They're talking about friggin' Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss. Right? I mean, you're like, really? That's what people that don't have a job and are freezing to death in Texas and can't get a vaccine are concerned about. Mr. Potato Head?
I don't think anybody cares about Mr. Potato Head. He is down at Mar-a-Lago doing whatever it is that he does now.
I see what you did there, Carl. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more of a sweet potato because of the orange texture.
I understand. He's not sweet, though. He is not sweet. Okay. I can't. And this includes, like, as we keep saying in poll after poll, about 60% of Republicans are for it, which brings me to with Joe Manchin. I mean, what the actual... Right? This is wildly popular in his state. $15 minimum wage is wildly popular in his state. I mean, Carl, yes. I get that we're in, LA or DC but listen, if most people are families, if you're a family, even in a much, less expensive area, $15 an hour is still, it's not too much anywhere, in my opinion,
no,
right?
It's not enough.
Right.
It's a step in the right direction is what it is. It is a promise of doing better by all of these people who continue to work their tails off even throughout this pandemic. Right. So yeah, it's problematic, but this is what's going to happen as long as we have a 50-seat majority in the Senate. One senator can throw a wrench in the...
But what is up with him? So Biden has had a backup plan to cut the income caps for Americans to receive this, payments as part of the COVID relief. So the phase-out levels for the $1,400 checks are $75,000 in income. Thank God, at least for that, because they were talking about $50,000, which I'm sorry is not rich anywhere, but it's in income for single filers. The cap for... some receiving payment is now $80,000, $150,000 for joint filers, now capped at $160,000. The changes come as moderate Senate Democrats call to limit the scope of the checks included in the legislation. And so, as you just said, to pass it under budget reconciliation, they cannot lose a single vote. But one senator should not have this much power. This is just, and it's not good for his own constituents. So I don't. What?
No, it's not. It's
can
not
you
good
answer
for the
what's up with Joe
majority
Biden?
either.
Or not Joe Biden, Joe Manchin. Sorry.
What's up with Joe Manchin? Look, there's probably some good contributions in it for him, that's for sure. From the very people who would oppose such a thing. Keep an eye on the National Restaurant Association. They, more than anyone, hate it when the minimum wage gets raised. And by the way, all of the arguments that we hear about raising the minimum wage are just baloney. You have enough places in this country now that have raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour or more and not seen job losses as a result of that.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. And I was saying yesterday, Carl, it should be indexed. This is ridiculous that it's been 12 years since we've raised it. We have to keep going through this when, and I keep saying all these ridiculous Republicans with their stories about what they worked for. You're like, right, in today's dollars, that's $15 an hour, right?
When your college degree cost you $5,000, over the course of 4 years, and now it's $60,000.
Right.
Come talk to us about the value of a dollar.
Right. But anyway, they're going to pull all these stunts today to try to slow this down, right? Ron Johnson, who doesn't even work for us, works for Russia. My point is, they
want them to read the entire bill out loud.
Yeah.
And, they would do anything for a president who wouldn't even read a book to himself.
Yeah. They're all about the parliamentarian now. They want the parliamentarian to read every word of the 700-page bill. Yeah, and when, by the way, the parliamentarian disagreed with them last time, they just fired the parliamentarian. I mean, it's just, there is frustration that, honestly, Carl, I don't know what you think about H.R. 1 that they just passed yesterday, but I don't think anything else matters unless they get this through somehow. Because, right, what Republicans are doing is in state by state is unbelievable in terms of voter suppression. It does not look like we're going to get help at the Supreme Court. I would argue that nothing else is going to matter. It's not even just voter suppression at this point. They're also looking at gerrymandering all over the state, all over the country. Right. Look at Florida. They're thinking that they might be able to gerrymander Florida to where there's only 11 members of Congress who are Democrats. So we've got H.R. 1 is the most critical piece of legislation after the relief bill. Yeah, I agree. I agree that, the COVID relief obviously, is number one, that we've got to get people help right away. But then, like I say, you're not going to get, it doesn't matter what issue you're passionate about, Carl, you're not going to get any of that done if we don't get H.R. 1 passed, in my opinion, right?
Right. And we have to force them onto a level playing field for the next election. It's critical. It doesn't just matter for the purposes of making sure that every vote is counted. It matters for the purposes of the House majority and the Senate.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So let's talk about the hearings going on, yesterday and today. The Bradley Moss said, so Michael Flynn's brother stalled assistance in responding to a violent insurrection helped spurred on by his brother. Chase tweeted, D.C. Guard Major General Walker reveals Defense Department delayed his request for emergency help that was very unusual, not consistent with events in June and July, where he got immediate approval with no discussion of optics. One on the call recommending no action, General Flynn. This all stinks to high heaven. And, all that time we were going, oh, what's he doing at the Pentagon right before he leaves office, right?
Mm-hmm.
They should call Bill Barr in. That's probably why he quit. He knew this was coming, right? This was one bridge too far for him. But I think this is.
And when you've gone too far for Bill Barr, there's something that stinks.
Right.
Yes.
Really to high heaven. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Let's just listen to this real quick because this is just 3 hours and 19 minutes. They waited. That's how long it took to get the National Guard there. Here is cut 6. The General Walker.
Chief Conte, Chief's son later joined the conversation, and we dialed in the senior leadership of the U.S. Army. And at that time, Chief Conte and Chief's son passionately pleaded for District of Columbia National Guard to get to the Capitol with all deliberate speed.
And then this follow-up.
The Army senior leaders did not think that it looked good, it would be a good optic. They further stated that it could incite the crowd. So their best military advice would be to the Secretary of the Army, who could not get on the call, So we wanted the Secretary of the Army to join the call, but he was not available. We were told that he was with the Secretary of Defense and not available. But the Army senior leadership expressed to Chief Conte, Chief Son, Dr. Mitchell, the Deputy Mayor, and others on the call that it would not be their best military advice to have uniformed guardsmen on the Capitol.
Yeah, there was a lot of concern about that when it looked like Fallujah, when it was Black Lives Matter protesters, right? I mean, you don't want to incite the bullies? Since when has that ever been a conversation with National Guard, right?
Forget inciting the bullies. How about protecting our legislators?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were already incited at the rally.
Yeah.
Yes. The commander-in-chief had already incited that crowd of thugs. So don't tell me that, they were worried about that. I wouldn't be surprised if they had orders to stand down.
Yeah, absolutely. And they defanged them, first of all. They didn't allow them weapons. They said, don't confront protesters, don't do any, I mean,
and remember,
Karl, we're in a country where they shoot black people for jaywalking or, possibly stealing a cigar or, I don't know, sleeping in your own bed. And they let them breach the Senate chamber without, just chatting with them. I mean, we saw it, right?
Well, and remember that the National Guard wasn't deployed until after this story was all over cable news.
Yeah.
And then even then, it wasn't Trump who did it.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Well, let's listen to one more. General Walker.
You were able to get immediate authorization in the summer of 2020 during those protests. General Walker, was the issue of optics ever brought up by Army leadership when the D.C. National Guard was deployed during the summer of 2020? Was that discussed?
It was never discussed the week of June. It was never discussed July 4th when we were supporting the city. It was never discussed August 28th when we supported the city.
Did you think that was unusual?
I did.
Let's all in unison do a thoughtful chin scratch. So curious. All right, one last one.
Who was talking about optics were General Flynn and General Pyatt. And they both said it wouldn't be in their best military advice to advise the Secretary of the Army to have uniformed guards members at the Capitol during the election confirmation.
Flynn. Checking notes. Flynn, that name sounds so familiar. General Flynn, you say.
Must be related.
Oh, Michael Flynn's little brother. Oh. And then, Karl, to make it even more suspicious, why'd the Army lie about it? They lied that Flynn was not on the call. They know what this looks like, right? They know this stinks to high heaven.
Of course it does. I mean, this was the last flailing attempts of the Trump administration to stay in power. They did everything they could to do so. And they got caught and people died.
Yeah.
And they allowed that to happen. We talked a lot during the Obama years about Hillary making, people die in the Middle East because she didn't do anything. Not at all true, but this is true. Trump didn't do anything to stop this, and people died.
Yep. Absolutely. He ordered the code red. I just skipped to the end.